Hi everybody, my name is Jordan Green. I am an elementary PE teacher for the Governor Mifflin School District, and my project is exercise interventions to improve fitness with individuals with ASD. I'm going to start by going over autism spectrum disorder. Autism means a developmental disability significantly affecting verbal and nonverbal communication and social interaction, generally evident before age 3, that adversely affects a child's educational performance. Other characteristics often associated with autism are engaging in repetitive activities and stereotype movements, resistance to environmental change or change in daily routines, and unusual responses to sensory experiences. There is not one autism but many subtypes, most influenced by a combination of genetic and environmental factors. Because autism is a spectrum disorder, each person with autism has a distinct set of strengths and challenges. The ways in which people with autism learn, think, and problem solve can range from highly skilled to severely challenged. Some people with ASD may require significant support in their daily lives, while others may need less support and in some cases live entirely independently. A child who shows the characteristics of autism after age 3 could be diagnosed as having autism if their criteria above are satisfied. Some of the social behavior symptoms. This includes unusual or inappropriate body language, gestures, and facial expressions, avoiding eye contact or using facial expressions that don't match what he or she is saying, lack of interest in other people or in sharing interests or achievements, showing you a drawing pointing to a bird, unlikely to approach others or to pursue social interaction, comes across as aloof and detached, prefers to be alone, difficulty understanding other people's feelings, reactions, and nonverbal cues, resistance to being touched, difficulty or failure to make friends with children the same age. Some of the speech and language symptoms. There's a delay in learning how to speak after the age of 2 or doesn't talk at all, speaking in an abnormal tone of voice or with an odd rhythm or pitch, repeating words or phrases over and over without communicative intent, trouble starting a conversation or keeping it going, difficulty communicating needs or desires, doesn't understand simple statements or questions, taking what is said too literally, missing humor, irony, and sarcasm. Behavior and play symptoms. Repetitive body movements, that's hand flapping, rocking, spinning, moving constantly. Obsessive attachment to unusual objects, rubber bands, keys, light switches. Preoccupation with a narrow topic of interest, sometimes involving numbers or symbols, maps, license plates, sports statistics. A strong need for sameness, order, and routines. Lines up toys, follows a rigid schedule, gets upset by change in their routine or environment. Some clumsiness, abnormal posture, or odd ways of moving. Fascinated by spinning objects, moving pieces or parts of toys, spinning the wheels on a race car instead of playing with the whole car. Hyper or hypo-reactive to sensory input, reacts badly to certain sounds or textures, seeming indifference to temperature or pain. Well, some of my students, sometimes I have one that's obsessed with my ID badge that I have attached to me. Definitely, they love spinning. Definitely have the repetitive body movements. In my class, I teach 2 groups of adaptive PE at my elementary school. I'm the only one in my district for elementary adaptive PE. So I've worked very closely for the past 3 years at Governor Mifflin and 2 in Coatesville with adaptive PE. I've learned a lot and still am learning, but you can get them to be involved in your PE program. Exercise and autism spectrum disorder. Obesity is very prevalent and high among children with ASD. Sometimes lack of resources or lack of motivation to get them physically active. This happens. Children with ASD can have poor muscular strength and endurance in their peers. That's due to them being more lethargic. Sometimes it's hard to get them off some technology, maybe at home. We try our best to keep them engaged in their PE classes as much as possible and to promote as much physical activity as we can. Fitness levels can be very low for children with ASD, and our goal is to get their fitness levels up and do the best we can to get them active. Exercise improves overall health for children with ASD. Exercise and physical activity can improve social skills and their communication. An exercise program can greatly improve motor skills such as running and kicking, their fitness levels, and skill-related activities like balancing and coordination. Strategies to promote physical activity. Start with easy activities such as walking your dog or family exercise breaks to build up to our goal of 60 minutes of physical activity each day, which is the recommended guideline for kids, is to get that full hour of physical activity a day. So when you're talking to a parent or caregiver, starting something easy and building up can help them. You can't just go right out and try to get them to do an hour of activity right away if they have not been, basically trained on, doing that. We need to focus on fundamental locomotor movements such as galloping, skipping, hopping, and running. Using peers in the class can get some of these students with ASD doing these movements. Sometimes me backing off and partnering them up with a peer does work very well. Use various activities that promote benefits in fitness and exercise, like horseback riding, swimming, weight training, or ping pong, not just traditional sports. Different activities can work for different individuals, and especially if you are working and focusing on an individual plan for each child, you have to find out what exactly can motivate them and get them out there to do these activities. You want to model a healthy, active lifestyle, but you also want to encourage some independence when doing their physical activities, because you want them to be able to know what to do and how to do things leading up to their independence, so that you're not constantly there by them, side by side, and sometimes they like to do things on their own. Come up with a good schedule. Use visual aids to help and support children with ASD. They love routines, and sometimes when things change up on them, you don't always get the best results. Here is a chart with exercise recommendations for individuals with ASD. The first one, structure of the environment. Predictability and familiarity are important. Follow a familiar exercise schedule. We just talked about, make sure you have a routine. Conduct sessions in the same physical space. Exercise must be done in a thermoneutral environment because children have immature thermoregulatory systems. Use visual cues to indicate the child's spot and distinguish space used. Consider the needs of the child when setting up the environment. Remember, everybody's individual, and if you're following their IEP, you got to follow the guidelines. For example, avoid distractions, bright lights, and loud sounds for children with hypersensitivity. Use visual picture schedules to provide structure to the session. I have several students with charts with Velcro, and you use visual pictures to put them on their chart. This approach helps children with ASDs to understand the progression in the session and anticipate transitions. Allow time for the child to adapt into any new activity. You can't just, throw them into something brand new, something they've never done before. It doesn't work that way. We got to ease into it. We got to transition into it when we're in PE. Exercise considerations. Use adaptive equipment to accommodate the motor impairments of the child. I always have to adapt equipment. You can't always expect the same kid to use the same ball or the same, equipment that with needs Velcro or a different type of implement, a bigger bat, things of that nature. Use heart rate monitors to monitor exercise performance for children who are intolerant. Use pictorial scales such as the pediatric OMNI scale to assess perceived exertion. For children taking antipsychotic medications, use perceived exertion scales because medications can affect resting and exercise heart rates and blood pressure. Children who are low functioning may need individual sessions, and children who are high functioning may benefit from group exercise programs. Progress gradually based on individual abilities. Give sufficient breaks and avoid overwhelming the child. Give sufficient time for warm-up and cool-down within a session. Look out for negative behaviors such as tantrums, non-adherence, and self-injury behaviors. If these behaviors are observed, ask the child to communicate the activity be stopped. Seek advice from caregivers on the best ways to address negative behaviors. You want to encourage parents to incorporate physical activity in the daily repertoire of the child at home by involving the child in daily chores and activities. Provide different enjoyable activity choices that will help the child succeed. Instructions, feedback, and reinforcement. Avoid long verbal instructions. Be brief and precise in your instructions. Whenever possible, combine verbal and visual instructions. For example, use visual picture schedules and instructions such as do this Provide manual guidance during the motor activities as required. Exercising with a peer or sibling who's developing typically could be motivating for the child. I've already mentioned that in my class, some of them do like to be motivated by their peers, and pairing them up with a peer actually is very beneficial sometimes. Provide verbal and gestural reinforcement in the form of good jobs and high fives. Provide breaks from activity to do favorite sensory activities. Stickers, small toys, or healthy edibles should be used to ensure adherence to exercise. I do use stickers. I do have small toys such as Matchbox cars and other things like that my students do like to use or hold, just to get them to actually move around in the gym. Give them a Matchbox car or a little bouncy ball just to hold, and they will actually go ahead and do the activity I'm asking them to do. And also the paras that bring in little baggies with healthy edibles that are used to motivate students in my adapted classes, and when they're included in the regular ed classes. The pack profile was a fitness guy who's really good with children with autism. The pack profile is from Eric Chesson. He came up with it, and this P is for physical, what the individual is able to do physically. A is for adaptive, what the individual is motivated to do. And C is cognitive, how the individual learns best in the physical education setting. Using all three of these skills when developing your fitness program will help you set your goals and develop your fitness program. There are 5 movement categories. By categorizing movement categories, parents, educators, therapists, and other professionals can develop balanced programs that are appropriate for any individual or group. Instead of focusing on a particular sport or individual muscle group like your arms, legs, or shoulders, movement-based exercise teaches the body to function as a cohesive, optimized unit. For example, upper body pulling motions from pull-ups to monkey bars to resistant band pulls incorporate the upper back muscles, shoulder, arms, and hands. In addition to developing strength and stability, these exercises can aid with their posture. It is important to consider the participant's current level of ability and tolerance for new activities or tasks. Once again, you can't just throw them into something new. You have to assess. In the beginning of the year, I always assess the students on where they're coming into the beginning of the school year, so that way I can gauge and gear my program to benefit each individual child. Using animal-based movement patterns for mobility and movement assessment has shown great success in the adaptive physical education setting. And I do have them, bear walking, crab walking, frog hopping, bunny hopping, all kinds of animal movements, acting out different animals, and it does get them up and moving, and it has been very motivating for the students as well. To break down the movement categories, there's pushing, pulling, squatting/bending, rotation, and locomotion. For pushing, using medicine balls, I can get the kids to push it up over their head. I can get them to push it out and throw to me or a partner. And they also like to slam the medicine balls down. Medicine ball slams are something fun that they like to do. For pulling, modified pull-ups, they love going out to the monkey bars and helping them out on that. And the use of resistant bands are very useful for pulling. You can attach the resistant band to some structure in your gym, and they can pull at it, gauge on their strength and how you want to change up the resistant band. Squatting and bending, have them bring out the yoga balls, and have them just try to squat down and sit on it if they can't fully do a squat on their own. Rotation, we got trunk twists, circular movements with objects. We do arm circles. Locomotion, like I said, the crab walking, bear hawking, frog hops, but also, you're getting into skipping, galloping, leaping, and other activities that involve the locomotor movements that are very helpful, getting the kids up and moving into the gym. So that's locomotion. So those are the 5 movement categories that help you base your fitness program on. Some fitness activities for individuals with ASD. Right here, these are some of the ones that have shown improve in motivation and getting them up and physically active. Obviously, running and walking, yoga, cycling or a stationary bike, swimming, dancing, martial arts, trampoline, and weightlifting and exercise balls. Some of my students are enrolled in martial arts. We have a swimming pool at our intermediate school, and they do love swimming. Have a trampoline and a bouncy ball that they love to jump on. These are all just different ways I get them motivated that I do know that work, and gets them up and healthy and active, and preaching and wanting them and modeling a healthy, active lifestyle. An appropriate exercise program. You want to develop, maintain, and enhance movement skills. Pair the exercise and physical activity with reinforcement to ultimately make the activities themselves fun and part of a lifestyle. Increase initiation and creativity skills through exposure to various modalities of exercise, using different equipment and different activities that we just went over the previous slide. Support socialization through small group activities that include elements of teamwork and helping behaviors. One of my first units is cooperation, and I do pair them up with peers in small groups, and they do interact and work together as a team and teamwork. And when they do that, some of the students with ASD really do shine, and they love the interaction with like a team, in a sense that they are part of doing something, whatever their goal is in that cooperation unit. Next up is a critical thinking activity. It's here. Please take the quick quiz form, Google Forms quiz that has 3 questions relating to what we have learned to this point in the presentation. I will send this link as well in the email when I send the link for the project. But we're going to go to it here so you guys can see. All right. What are some strategies you have used to encourage more physical activity with any of your students with ASD? What exercise considerations can you use when starting a fitness program for a student with ASD? And what fitness activities have you used besides the traditional sport activities with your students with ASD? Okay. Teacher planning for success. Knowledge, being prepared, and communication with students will contribute considerably for optimal learning and physical education in your students' individualized fitness program. Teachers must identify unique needs for all of their students when developing an exercise program to improve fitness. Once again, I cannot do the same fitness type program for every individual in my adapted classes. I have got to adjust it, transform it into what benefits each individual child. Especially with children with autism and ASD, not everything works the same for everybody. As a teacher, you must determine appropriate instructional setting, the fitness modifications, the support services that each child has, and proper teaching materials such as the visual aids, audio, or electronic devices. Some of my students love visual aids, and they have their own charts, or I have my charts for them to show them, give them cues. I always like to play music, but sometimes it's got to be a little lower than normal. And some of the students have electronic devices they use to communicate back with me, whether they need a break, whether they like the activity. So of that nature, there are iPads and other technologies that are used. Teachers must individualize instruction for their students. Options include using same curriculum content, a multi-level curriculum, a modified curriculum, and a different curriculum to meet students' needs. Teachers must adapt fitness activities to ensure students with different abilities have the opportunity to fully participate and gain benefits from participation and socialization with peers. Helpful techniques to improve fitness. Permit sharing, peers as partners, or modified time limits. Those are all great. Select activities in which contact can be made and maintained with an opponent, partner, small group, or object. You want to modify activities so that all students have a disadvantage or disability or impairment if you're doing a full-fledged game. Modify or avoid elimination type games for activities. Reduce the play area or field for students with limited movement capabilities. Always emphasize the student's abilities, not their disability. Modify an activity by decreasing distance. Having a head start or changing equipment such as a lighter or larger bat or beeper ball. Also a texturized ball works well, or bouncy balls. For fitness planning, A fitness plan for physical education should be well thought of, organized, and prepared. Collaboration with others is vital to making it work. Have solid school policies and procedures. When planning, teachers need to consider the class size, my ratio of students with disabilities and without, type of disability, and what support personnel is available. Student environment, equipment, and school facilities play an important part. Prepare the regular education students to interact and work with all the students in class. The school is a community with a positive learning environment. Prepare your support staff about fitness, exercise goals, expectations, and outcomes working with their students. So this means going over your IEPs, the school policy and procedures, working with the paraeducators that are also working with the students with you when you're doing their fitness program and their exercise plan to make sure that everybody's on the same page and on the same level. Adaptive physical education. I'm going to go over adaptive physical education and what I use, what standards I use to work with my program. Adaptive physical education is physical education that has been adapted or modified so it is appropriate for the person with a disability as it is for a person without a disability. APE is a direct service because physical education mandated for children with disabilities under Individuals with Disabilities Act. APE should emphasize an active program of physical activity, safe participation, and progress towards the state's PE and health standards using a continuum of placements and supports. IDEA mandates that students with a disability must be taught by highly qualified teachers. Each state interprets what they believe is a highly qualified teacher. So I use the Adaptive Physical Education National Standards. There's 15 national standards that specialize in knowledge. Standard 1, Human Development. Standard 2 is Motor Behavior. Standard 3 is Exercise Science. This focus is on the standards and the principles that address the physiological and biomechanical applications encountered when working with diverse populations. That's very appropriate and important. We have Standard 4, Measurement and Evaluation. Standard 5 is History and Philosophy. Standard 6 is Unique Attributes of Learners. Standard 7, Curriculum Theory and Development. Standard 8, Assessment. Standard 9, Instructional Design and Planning. It's very important how I design and plan my programming, planning for the year, everybody's fitness plan, following their IPE and the standards I have for the state, as well as the national standards and the Adaptive Physical Education national standards. And then Standard 10 is Teaching. Standard 11, Consultation and Staff Development. This is with me working with my staff and all the paraeducators and aides we have working with our adapted students and just being able to work together and make sure the program is what it needs to be. Standard 12, Student and Program Evaluation. Standard 13, Continuing Education. Standard 14, Ethics. And Standard 15, Communication. And how this relates to the national standards for physical education. Standard 1 for the national standards demonstrates competency in motor skills and movement patterns needed to perform a variety of physical activities. That's very important, working with the students. Standard 2 demonstrates understanding of movement concepts, principles, strategies, and tactics as they apply to the learning and performance of physical activities. Standard 3 participates regularly in physical activity. Standard 4 achieves and maintains a health-enhancing level of physical fitness. Standard 5 exhibits responsible personal and social behavior that respects self and others in physical activity settings. Standard 6 values physical activity for health, enjoyment, challenges, self-expression, and/or social interaction. What do physical educators need to know? Physical education should be adapted or specifically designed if a student with a disability is not safe or not making progress toward Pennsylvania's academic standards for health, safety, and physical education in a general physical education class. Being successfully included in a general physical education class means that students with disabilities are educated with their typically developed peers, have the support services they need, and are meeting or exceeding their own IEP goals or meeting or exceeding the class goals. During physical education class, students with disabilities should be physically active. The designation of students with disability as timers, scorers, line judges, and officials of games as their sole role in physical education is an inappropriate practice and something that I never did do. Adapted physical education is the appropriate terminology to use when a student needs specifically designed physical education. Adapted physical education for students with disabilities is a direct service as part of the definition of special education according to IDEA. Adapted physical education is not a related service. Here's my first reference page and my second reference page. I appreciate everybody going through this presentation with me. I hope the critical thinking activity on the Google form doc that I sent you will help with this presentation. Hope everybody's having a great summer, and I appreciate all of you taking the time to listen to my presentation. Thank you.